All right. Welcome everybody back to your virtual meeting. So nice to see all your virtual faces again. Lots of cool folks on this call. And Doug and I are going to be making people co-host right and left, because if you're going to be presenting something, showing any data, showing any charts or graphs or cool planning concepts, we're going to need you to be able to share your screen. So you guys know the drill. Everybody should be able to chat and throw some questions in there, and then we'll go with the sort of hand raise unmute feature. Hope that sounds good to everybody. All right. Should we have a couple introductions just to get started? Why not? I see one person on via phone, and I'm going to guess I know who that is. My name is Amy J. Hawkins. I am enjoying serving as your chair of the Ballpark Community Council, whether it's running these fun meetings and planning them or helping y'all pick up trash in the neighborhood. It's all been great. Let's have all the other board members who are online say hello, starting with Doug, who is busy.
Hi, I'm Doug Flagler. I live over by Jefferson Park, and I think it's been a year and a half, 2 years with the Ballpark Community Council Board.
Jeff Sandstrom.
Hi, this is Jeff, checking in from Main Street.
Nice to see you, Jeff. Jeff has been serving on the Ballpark Community Council for a long time, and we are grateful for his service and his institutional memory. He knows things about planning that other people weren't around for. Let's see if you're, let me scroll through here and see who else is on from the board. I believe Fraser's one of the phone numbers, so I will ask some of those to unmute. So I don't know how that works on the phone.
Hi, everybody. Fraser Nelson calling in from Idaho. Just joined the board recently, excited to be a part of this process.
Fraser, I'm delighted that worked. Thank you for joining us tonight, even just by the phone.
Thanks.
All right. Any other board members around? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, well, first up on the agenda tonight, we're kind of flipping the script tonight and moving our normal public safety conversations to the end. Our Detective Sam Fallows had a conflict with another community council meeting, so we will get started with some planning stuff. We've got some really exciting, we're a neighborhood in transition. So the very first thing is going to be talking about the 300 West corridor and station area plan. And that's covering the blocks adjacent to 300 West, between like the 9th South off ramp on the north and 2100 South to the south. So is anybody on to present about that? We were under the impression folks would be. But if not, we can move on and we can hold the phone, as it were, and see if we can learn about the Ballpark NEXT proposal. Corinne, we'd love to hear from you.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Corinne Piazza. I'm a senior project manager with the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City, and I have some really great team members here with me tonight. We have Christine Richmond. Christine, if you'd like to wave. She is with GSBS Architects. We also have Erica Shimlewski, if you'd like to wave. Great, thank you so much. We also have McKenna Hawley from the RDA, who's having some technical difficulties. So I'm not sure 100 West folks are having that too, but hopefully she'll join as well. So I'm going to do just a really brief intro and then hand it over to GSBS to walk you through the details of the Ballpark NEXT community visioning process. We're really excited to share that with you tonight, and thanks so much for hosting us. We'll also have a Q&A at the end so that you can ask questions, and we'll just let GSBS get through their presentation, because I think that 10,000-foot view will help, and then we can dive into the details. So if you remember, at the end of the design competition, May 31st, we announced we do a community visioning process. And this invites folks to participate, residents, area stakeholders, in an overall collaborative process that is going to result in the Ballpark NEXT guiding principles. So these principles are really important. I'm very excited about these principles because they are going to set the stage, set the framework for what happens at the Smiths Ballpark site, and then also help inform the development process from here on out. So we've partnered with GSBS to lead that process. And many of you already know them quite well, especially Christine, as they worked on the Ballpark Station area plan with the community previously. So over the last couple months in preparation for this process, we really started diving into a lot of the research, due diligence around the parcels, different things that'll help inform the community process. So we're all brainstorming with the same facts, the same information. We also held an in-person and online survey asking community members how they wanted to be engaged with, and that informed our schedule and what we're calling an engagement roadmap. So Christine's going to walk you through that tonight. And it's essentially a tool for residents and any participants to use that shows what each step is, where the feedback opportunities are, how that information is used, and what the overall process is, start to finish. I like to call them Candyland boards because you can visualize that really well. Probably ages me or dates me a little bit as well, but we went with a little bit more technical terms. So engagement roadmap, but this is going to be a great tool for folks to use. And then also this evening, GSBS will walk you through some details on the first engagement opportunity, which starts tonight and goes all the way through the end of September. So with that, I will hand it over to GSBS to get started, and they will share their screen. I'm not sure if it's Christine or Erica.
Thanks. It's Erica who is going to run the presentation. I'm going to do most of the talking, but you'll also hear from Erica as well. I want to say how happy I am to be working with the Ballpark community again. There are a lot of familiar faces and some new faces on this screen, and I'm pleased to see everyone. As I think has been mentioned, GSBS completed the Ballpark Neighborhood Stationary Plan in 2021. And so there are several things that we're going to talk about that come into play that we want to think about as we go through this process. So let's go to the next slide, Erica. So this graphic, this is a graphic that many of you are probably already familiar with. It describes the process that the city is implementing and that we're going to implement between now and the end of the year. And although I'm going to talk about each of these phases as if they are discrete and have a specific time period, you'll notice that there is actually some overlap in the steps. So we're going to focus on, we're in phase one right now. So we're going to talk about that and the schedule for that in more detail a little bit later. This phase lays the foundation for a successful process that will result in a vision that expresses the community's values and objectives for the Smiths Ballpark site and North Parking Lot, and provides guidelines for future actions and development. Phase two is the active community engagement process. You'll see on the schedule that we'll share with you in a moment that there are both online and in-person opportunities for you to give us your input and feedback. The engagement preferences from the survey earlier this year indicated that people want the opportunity to participate both in person and online. And so we've structured the process to accommodate the ways that people want to interact with that. And although this slide indicates that this will happen in October and November, we're actually starting the online process today with this, our first stakeholder meeting, and continuing it with the community event on Saturday, where you'll see that we have a presence and we're already starting to talk to people about this process. So we're hitting the ground running and we're really excited to be here. So phase three will bring all of the information together into a document that clearly identifies the community's vision for the future of Smiths Ballpark and the North Parking Lot, and includes design guidelines that will be incorporated into the city's next steps for the future of the sites. So just some background, Smith's Ballpark and the North parking lot are in the heart of the Ballpark neighborhood. It's a core consideration of the Ballpark Station Area Plan that was completed in 2021. And it resulted that the idea of this area around the ballpark as the heart of the neighborhood informs a number of the goals that were identified in that plan that relate specifically to the heart of the neighborhood and to the neighborhood as a whole. So next, there we go. So I just briefly want to go over some of those goals that were included in that station area plan. So the plan assumed that the bees would continue to play at Smith's Ballpark, and their presence there acted as an anchor for the urban environment. And so the goal was to create and expand on that urban environment and entertainment zone around the ballpark in the heart of the neighborhood. And although the bees are leaving, the goal to create an urban environment, urban entertainment zone in the heart of the neighborhood can still be relevant. So we want to think about what uses go there and if they can act as a catalyst in the same way. I know from listening to some of the things I've heard from community members say earlier before we came on board, that's probably a goal that's shared by some people. I think that came out in part of the community council's outreach that was done earlier this year as well. So in the outreach, let's see, sorry, I got kind of lost in my comments. So what we're going to be doing, could you go back to that? Oh, yes, sorry. So there are several other goals in the ballpark station area plan that remain relevant, taking advantage of current development opportunities and existing services and amenities to enhance neighborhood livability, making sure that we leverage what's there and what can be there in an appropriate way for neighborhood residents and business owners. Increasing connectivity. This was something that was really important and remains important as we're thinking about what happens on those two blocks. Increasing urban design quality, improving safety, enhancing social vibrancy, and increasing affordability and attainability of housing for current and future residents in the whole ballpark neighborhood, not necessarily on these two parcels. So we want to make sure that as we're thinking about these two parcels, how they fit into the bigger picture of the neighborhood. Now, if we can go to the other one. So this is a quick overview of where we've been so far. So you can see that the station area plan was done in 2020 and 2021. And at the same time, there was a study of the existing stadium and infrastructure that we have access to. So we're looking at that and reviewing that as well. So we have an understanding of the art of the possible at the stadium itself. In March of this year was the Ballpark NEXT design competition. And in June, the engagement preferences survey. And now here in August, we're kicking off the community visioning process. So let's get to the actual, process. And so we're establishing a community advisory committee. And as part of the survey that many of you responded to, we did ask who was interested in serving on that. So we'll be using that input. And this graphic describes the role of the Community Advisory Committee and the broader ballpark community in creation of the final deliverable that will be incorporated into the city's next steps. So the Community Advisory Committee will be 15 to 20 people, including residents, mostly residents, and business owners in the ballpark neighborhood, as well as community organizations or located in or serving ballpark residents. The role of the Community Advisory Committee is to encourage participation in the community engagement process by the groups they represent or interact with, help to shape the guiding principles included in the final deliverable, review materials that we'll provide in advance of each meeting, and to act as an ambassador for the community. The Park community has a critical role in the development of the vision and guiding principles as well. The broader community includes all residents, businesses, property owners, visitors, employees, patrons, other stakeholders in the ballpark neighborhood. They're invited to provide input online, in person, and other methods by participating in surveys, focus groups, and other events to review and react to materials and ideas, and to give us ideas. So Erica is going to walk you through the engagement roadmap that lays out what these steps are.
Thank you. As Corinne and Christine already alluded to, this engagement roadmap is really going to guide our community visioning process. This process will go from August until December, with our guiding principles finalized in January. So step 1 launches today, which is very exciting, and we'll kind of get into it in a little bit what this all entails. But we have kicked off our website. And so in this website, there is a interactive map called Social Pinpoint, where residents are able to take their comments and put them on the map. Us how they feel about certain areas that this community visioning process will cover. However, it is not just online. We will be out this Saturday at the Kensington Street Festival, where we will be collecting in-person feedback. We have printed out maps exactly like how they are on the website. And so we will be able to get feedback exactly like how it is in the website. We will also be having some smaller stakeholder and also, this Ballpark Community Council session as part of our step 1. And really what this is meant for is to introduce the project, to generate input, and to communicate our process to everyone. We then transition into step 2, where we launch our first survey. And so that survey will be available through the website as well as in key locations throughout the neighborhood. And it allows people to not only leave comments via the website, but also, those who do not have access to a computer or may not be that technologically advanced, they are able to take the survey just as everyone else. And so this will really identify the community objectives. Step 3 takes us into our big community event, which will be our open house. This will be an in-person event. The location is still to be decided, but that will be updated shortly. And really what this event is to refine the community objectives, identify vision. And so we know how to move forward from there. Then we have another survey for step 4. And that will be similar to step 2, where we will have that on the website and in person. And we will identify the community priorities to inform the guiding principles. We then transition to step 5, which is our final big community event. And that will be to review and provide input on the draft guiding principles. We will then review what we gathered in this step to finalize our guiding principles. And so as part of the community visioning process, this is our big public engagement push, where we really want to focus on multiple forms of engagement. So there will be web-based engagement with our website, with our Social Pinpoint interactive map and web-based surveys, but there will also be a lot of in-person events, which will really allow everyone in the community to leave their mark on this. And so through various stakeholder meetings, surveys at key locations, open houses, and community events. And so as the website kickoff is today, I did want to walk everyone through our website. And so can everyone see my screen transition to the website? Nope. Okay,
I see a laptop on your screen, but.
all
like a-
right, let's try again. How about now?
It's
Perfect.
there, it's beautiful.
All right, thank you. So here is our website. And I encourage everyone right now even to go to engageballpark.com, or you can get it through the city's website. If you just type in Ballpark Next, there is a link to it from the city's website that you can also get to. So engageballpark.org. And the first thing that you can click on is post your comments. So we have a little video over here that demonstrates what is social pinpoint and how is it used. And not to worry, because we also have one in our social pinpoint map as well, along with a little descriptor of how to use social pinpoint and how to drop in the map. So we see here is our community visioning process site area. And we are able to add a comment of either ideas and suggestions, community assets, things that we like, and any concerns that we might have. And so you can just click on it, put the placemaker in, and leave any comment that you would like. We do require a zip code only. And that's just so we know whether the comment is coming from someone in the neighborhood or a visitor. And that is social pinpoint.
So Erica, I'm going to
Yes.
ask you to demonstrate by dropping a pin under and as a community asset, drop it on the ballpark itself and make the comment, maintain or retain the police substation in the area. We've had a comment in the chat that is specifically about the future of that substation, you know, as a way to address crime in the neighborhood that we're all aware of. And so I think this is a way that we would get that into this set of comments. We'll also make notes of it as a result of this conversation. And when we meet with the community, when we meet with the community advisory committee, we'll talk about what some of the guiding principles could be to address that specific concern.
And so here we are, and this is our comment. When there is a comment, this works a lot like social media. You can start a discussion and leave a comment. You can also like and dislike a comment as well. We do monitor these, and so, you know, any crude language or something will have to be verified by us to make sure that it is not crude. And so there won't be any of that kind of information that pops up here. And so, yeah, I do encourage everyone to come on here after the meeting and start putting in your ideas and suggestions.
So that's our presentation tonight. I wanted to just sort of go over what this is, the engagement roadmap again. You can see that the way it's structured is that the online and the in-person opportunities flow back and forth together. And what the Ballpark Community Advisory Committee also meets at key moments in this process to review information, to help us get the word out. And that's a good point, Amy.
Sorry about that. But I would love for, you know, city council members are definitely community stakeholders. I would love for them to be able to attend. And if there are things on city council agenda that are relevant to the ballpark community. You're going to get some, you know, folks who like to be engaged, want to be able to show up, you know.
Yeah, so Corinne and Erica, I don't know if you saw, but Amy typed in a comment that says that both October 17th and November 14th, which are the dates that we have identified for the open houses, are Tuesdays. And so there's a concern about conflicting with city council meeting.
They are actively, I verified on my calendar.
Yeah.
They might move the date, but those are Tuesdays with city council meetings.
No, we got a thumbs up from Corinne, so we will address that in our scheduling. And so you may in very short order see a revision to those dates, and it's close to those as we currently have.
And I will just jump on here and say, if there is a question about the engagement roadmap, where you can find it, it's right on our website. And so, and it is also located on the city's website as well. So we will update that and we will put it back out onto our website.
So Erica, will you go to the resources page on the website as well? So you can see there are several links here. There isn't anything under Ballpark Community Advisory Committee right now. When we get there, you'll be able to see, there's just a note that we're in the process of appointing that. The presentations that we give related to this process, including, you know, the materials from open houses and things like that, will be on the link that says presentation. So tonight's presentation will be on that link as well. If Erica will click on the demographic report. So in the Ballpark neighborhood station area plan, we had several, you know, we had used a set of demographics and data. We've updated that data from when we did the plan, because there have been several years since then. So you can find the updated information here on this page that you know, will inform sort of our discussions with the community moving forward. And then if you want to look at that whole station area plan, it's on that link. And we also have, okay, now there we go. There's the station area plan. And then there's also a link to the design competition recap. All right. So any questions? There's one in the chat that is, how will decisions be made based on community feedback? How will community concerns be incorporated into any RFQ? So I'm going to take the first question, and then I think Corinne can respond to the second question. So the process that we're outlining is to identify and develop a community vision and guiding principles. So it's an iterative process where this team, the consulting team, is listening to you, feeding back what we think we heard, getting your input that either we heard you correctly or there need to be some adjustments. The language that it gets expressed in will be, you know, that the community's vision for these two locations, the ballpark, the stadium itself, and the north parking lot, hopefully working together, will address certain some vision, will express some vision for the community, and that the design guidelines will address things like urban form and, you know, preferred sort of approach to how it interacts with the neighborhood, that will make sure are expressed in a way that they can be incorporated into whatever the next steps are for the city. And so it's not a process where you're telling me something and I, you know, take it into account and say, well, I responded to your comment this way and that way. It's an iterative process where we're listening to you feeding back what we think we heard. You're moving that process along. We're feeding it back to you. So the intent is that the vision and guiding principles will be the community's vision and guiding principles that then get incorporated into the next step that Corinne will talk about.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Thanks, Amy. Hi, Erica. It's great to see you again. So kind of along the lines of what Christine's saying, essentially the principles are going to be based on what you'd like to see and also what you'd like to address. They may be listed in a pretty positive way, something along the lines of you want to see activation 365 days a year to help reduce crime. So those concerns can be incorporated in that way. And then also I keep in mind that for this process, these two parcels can definitely help move the needle on issues like crime, but they wouldn't be able to solve every problem for the whole neighborhood in perpetuity. So I think keeping that in mind throughout the process is important too, where it'll be a very, very important puzzle piece as we move forward and we can incorporate those concerns.
I'm going to serve up. I know, I believe Fraser Nelson had a question. So I'm going to see if she can, she's on the phone, so she can't put it in the chat as easily, I think.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it. Can you just clarify one thing? In the ballpark rezone that was presented at our last community council meeting, the north lot was identified as not part of the same zoning as the stadium. And therefore we were concerned that it might be up for grabs for uses that weren't contiguous to the stadium. Are you saying by mentioning that lot in this process that has been taken off that rezone and is now considered, but I can't see the map, so like P1 or whatever the open space issue was? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm not sure that I have the answer to that. Corinne, do
Sure.
you have
Fraser,
insight on that?
Sure. Hi, Fraser. Just to make sure I understand what you're saying. So the north lot is in the rezone and the ballpark is currently in PL or public lands. Are you asking why the north lot is in the rezone?
Yeah, the north lot is not in this, does not have the same zoning as the stadium. So the concern that was raised at our last community council meeting was, could the north lot be used for like apartments when the community was really clear that they wanted that to be potentially open space or other uses that were community focused rather than commercially focused.
Gotcha. Okay, no, so the great thing about the zone that it's being changed to is it really doesn't inhibit any of the ideas that you've had so far or through the plan, such as improved amenities or improved design or improved pedestrian realm. It just opens the opportunity for that, but it doesn't preclude you or tie you into like this space is housing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I think it does. Thank you. But I think the concern from the residents was we wanted to make sure that that north lot was protected and considered as part of the Ballpark Next and not up for grabs as 13th South becomes a residential high density apartment corridor, which has been envisioned by the upzoning.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the zoning change does not put it up for grabs. It is part of this discussion, this visioning process. And again, if anything, it's really just setting that lot up to tie into the vision from the station area plan. And it doesn't preclude you from something like having green space, like that's allowed in any zone in the city. So I don't think it means it's up for grabs for anything because it's part of this overall development process.
Right. I think what we were asking is that if it could have the same zoning as the stadium itself, just to clarify that it fell within that planning area versus something that might be used in a way that was not coherent with the plan for the stadium. That was just our concern, and I think they may be considered for the planning committee. So just if we could just clarify that, I think it'd be helpful for residents. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
I have that proposed zoning pulled up if it would clarify to look at it. But I know, part of the, I think a little bit of the confusion has been separating this engagement cycle from the engagement cycle on the proposed rezoning. I think it seems a little counterintuitive to folks that these be two totally separate processes. We're going to have the ballpark rezone engagement at our next community meeting. Again, they're taking some feedback and making some changes, but it does feel, I'll let somebody else articulate how it feels. It can be a little confusing.
I think I totally understand. And I think the way that the planning, I don't want to speak for the planning department, but I believe the way that they're looking at that, and then also our team, is that they're not separate, because that rezone is based on the ballpark station area plan, which how Christine started her presentation with. Those goals are still very relevant for the overall growth of the community. So whether or not the ballpark is there as a ballpark or it changes to another use, supporting transit, supporting an active pedestrian, area, those types of goals remain the same. I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't imagine if, the results of this process will be no longer supporting transit, or you don't want it to engage with transit. So I think that they are somewhat in line. Essentially, the ballpark station area plan collected all that information. Those goals don't necessarily change with the ballpark leaving. And by starting some of that zoning process, it'll support the ideas that are coming out of the visioning process. And also, sorry, that was someone going, or was that maybe a dog? Okay. Also, we can, you mentioned that the planning department will be there next month too. We can touch base with them as well, but they'll be able to speak to it further too. Are there any other questions or anything about the roadmap or anything else?
We'll look forward to hearing about some new dates for in-person events.
Great.
Can you tell us, you're thinking of, an evening event, right? Because those are
Yes.
on work days.
Absolutely. Yes,
That's right.
And then when you're sharing information with folks, you can send them to ballparknext.com. That's the website that we've used from the beginning. And then from there, you can link to everything that Erica showed you today. And there's also the community roadmap, or excuse me, engagement roadmap there that you can look at in more detail and share with folks as well. Great. Thank you.
Right. Looking forward to seeing you at the Kensington Street Fest and everybody else. Oh.
Kelly, the Ballpark Next, it's ballparknext.org. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right, another zoning conversation, you guys. If the folks from, I understand the 300 West area plan folks signed on. Please raise your paws so we can unmute you and make you co-host so you can share probably another website to give feedback and engagement about what we hope to happen in the community. Just guessing.
Thanks, Amy.
Hey there.
Hi. I don't seem to have all the controls that I thought I did, but I'm having some technical difficulties with the Zoom.
You should be a co-host now, so if you need to present, you can.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see. Is that screen sharing working?
It looks beautiful. That's the best I've seen 300 West look ever.
It's a good drone shot. So thanks again. Sorry for the trouble earlier. I'm Daniel Echeverria. I'm with the Salt Lake City Planning Division, and I'm just gonna give you a brief overview of the new planning effort by the city that's going to impact the area around 300 West and the Central Point track station. Let's see. So I'll just start by going over the area we're looking at. So the full project area extends from 1000 South, or the I-15 off ramp, to 21st South, and then from I-15 on the west to the tracks line at 200 West on the east. And then between 17 South to 21st South, the area extends a little bit more eastward to West Temple. So there's two different areas we're looking at. On the north end, it's labeled the extended area. The ballpark plan already covers that area. We're not here to duplicate those efforts. So instead of a new plan in that northern area, we're focusing on creating new zoning to implement the existing adopted ballpark plan. And then on the southern end, that's labeled the focus area, it's highlighted in blue. That area is not covered by the ballpark plan. So we'll be developing a new station area plan with entirely new policies, and we'll also develop zoning for that area as well. So just to give you some background on this plan, the zoning issues for this area have been on the minds of the public, the planning commission, and planning staff for a number of years. The area's seen a lot of residential development interest and pressure over the past 5 years or so, and there's really been in recognition that the zoning really might not align with the most recent city priorities, housing, walkability, connectivity, and street engagement. So part of the issue is that the area is covered by the city's general commercial zone, which was really always intended for commercial uses, light industrial uses. It wasn't really ever intended for the residential development that we're actually getting. That current zoning pretty much has no design standards, so we don't have any requirements that buildings have any sort of active uses along the street or eyes on the street. There aren't any requirements for any level of architectural interest or any sort of residential amenities either. The other issue is that the zoning also doesn't support the new bike lanes on 300 West that the city just completed. The zoning doesn't require any sort of street engagement to make use of that bicycle path more comfortable or encourage use of that path really at all. So on top of that, the state also did recently adopt a requirement for cities to develop what are called station area plans for the areas around track stations. And in this case, we have the 21st South or Central Point track station on the south end of the area. And that's what led us to ultimately doing this new plan for the area as well. So again, for all those reasons, the city applied for a grant from the Wasatch Front Regional Council, or WFRC. We were awarded $140,000 with a $10,000 grant from the city. So we have a total budget of $150,000 for the planning effort. We went through a selection process facilitated by WFRC, and the city selected the Consultant Design Workshop as the lead consultant on this plan. So Design Workshop and MHT and Architects are the consultants that have been leading out on this project. So they've been reaching out to property owners and residents as part of the planning process so far. So as far as timelines, we're getting toward the middle of the first part of the process. We've been collecting feedback from residents, businesses, and property owners over the past couple months on a virtual walking tour website. It's very similar to the website that was shown for Ballpark NEXT. So on there, you can add your ideas or concerns for anywhere in the area that we're looking at. The consultant has also been walking the neighborhood and reaching out for one-on-one interviews with residents and business owners as well. And at the same time, the consultant's been working on an existing conditions report that will help inform the plan development. So based on that work, the consultant is going to be developing 2 alternatives or scenarios for the area for public input. And they'll present those at an open house in early September for public feedback. Then based on that public input, they'll take one of those scenarios, modify it and refine it a bit further, and develop a draft plan around that alternative or scenario. We'll come back out to the community with that final plan for more input. And then after that, we'll take that to the Planning Commission and then the City Council finally for adoption. That could be the end of the year, it could be early next year. So that's part 2 of the process, or part 1 of the process. Part 2 of the process is actually The consultant going to work on developing a zoning code that reflects the plan, reflects the community priorities, and then we'll be bringing that zoning back out to the community for public input, and then going through the adoption process again with the Planning Commission and City Council, likely ultimately summer of 2024 is when we're hoping to get that before the City Council. So that about covers it. I do want to direct people to our webpage where you can find more info and provide your ideas on that mapping like Ballpark NEXT has. We will be mailing notices out for open house to get feedback on those draft scenarios soon. But again, that's going to be likely early September. We haven't quite locked in the date or the location for that, but we're exploring our options. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Looking for hands, but can you tell me how tree equity might fit into your plan?
Was that
Whenever-
tree equity?
Yeah, urban forestry. Whenever I look at the urban forestry map for 300 West, I get depressed.
I know that there are a lot of trees have been planted with the 300 West improvements, but that's part of something we're looking at is streetscape improvements to the side streets in addition to 300 West, because we know that urban forest canopy is much
Absent.
less dense in that area. Yeah,
Is absent. There is none. You showed us a concrete jungle.
There's a lot of that.
And even if you look at, for example, the public lands assessment from 2019, it doesn't assess 300 West as a residential zone. And I think you guys on this call understand that it is very much, and it's growing in terms of residential density. So even though we've already been designated a high need neighborhood in terms of needing more parks and open space, but that's even not taking into account the idea that there's going to be any people living on 300 West. So I'm really hoping to see some of those green equity concepts work its way into the plan. So
Certainly.
And I'm happy to put them in writing too. I just wanted to vocalize them so people know.
Appreciate it.
Has there been any talk of doing a moratorium on new projects in the area until plans developed?
There hasn't been, to be honest, there has been a slowdown of new projects, definitely in the past 6 months or so. I don't know if that's going to pick up anytime soon. At a maximum, if the council did decide on a moratorium, those last about 6 months, but we really haven't been seeing that much come in, to be honest with you.
Could you talk about why the plan juts out to include that part of West Temple? That part of West Temple doesn't seem very similar to 300 West. It seems more similar to the rest of the neighborhood in that area south of 17th South.
Yeah, so part of the reason for that is that this station area plan, the state code actually calls for us to go out a bit further. I'm not even sure that we're actually fully going out as much as the state would prefer us to go with our planning effort, but we want to at least evaluate the properties around there. If they're appropriate, the current zoning is appropriate, then they could just remain as is, but we want to take a look at that as part of that planning effort. Particularly, I think on the ends near 21st South itself, where we do have some commercial properties. I think particularly there, we want to be looking at making sure that those properties are zoned appropriately.
I look forward to sometime in the next however many months when we get the station area plan from West Temple to State Street in between 17th and 21st. Sorry, we're getting little chunks of our neighborhood station area. I guess it's not near a station. Maybe it's kind of near, I don't know, the streetcar. I don't know, but maybe not close enough to count.
Was that 17th? Sorry.
The only chunk of our neighborhood left in this area that has not had a new plan applied to it is the area in between West Temple and State Street, 17th South to 21st South.
Okay, yeah. So that is partly covered by this the State Street planning efforts that we're hoping to bring back at some point. So ultimately, that might get covered by that.
So your
I've
neighbor
got a
John
quick-
has a question.
Hi, my name's John. I'm a business owner in the area there. And I am just wondering, has there been any talk of, and is there potential that we can talk about in the future, a tracks station at 1700 South, or is that something that's been talked about and soundly dismissed?
So that is in the existing ballpark plan. So we're not really planning on revisiting that. The ballpark plan does call for that station at some point in the future as an option. We have heard from UTA that there may be some feasibility constraints with that, so it might not make sense in the near term, but we still want to look kind of to that in the long term as a possibility.
Thank you.
What's the price tag on a new station? 10 million?
Oh, I couldn't hazard a guess.
I've heard
I'm sure
people, I've heard people say that before, so
they're not cheap.
no, doesn't seem to be. But I just want to ride tracks someday and see people get on with all their Costco purchases. That'd be truly exciting. Do you feel honored to be doing the station area plan that incorporates the world's largest Costco?
We're famous for that Costco, right? Yeah.
Amy, I think we've been downgraded to the world's second largest. now.
Not yet, Doug.
Oh,
Not yet. I'm going to hold on to that title as long as I can. It's proposed for California, has been built yet.
Still got
right.
it.
So exciting. Okay. I have like one joke, man, and it's the world's largest Costco joke. I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. It implies that there are larger Costcos on other worlds, you guys.
Oh, jeez.
All right, that's it. Kelly Lake, another business owner on 300 West.
I'm just in here to side with John Marguez. As the amount of parking and the drivability for our employees gets lessened and lessened and lessened, and I know it's hitting you guys, Amy, where you are as well. You've referenced kind of being blocked in where you are. It's a real concern. My team can't get to work. My team can't park. And as the development keeps encroaching, I'm not anti-development, but it is pretty crucial for my people, a lot of whom don't drive, to be able to get to work. And biking is not feasible in December at 2 a.m.
For sure.
So yeah, just another voice in huge support of what John was saying.
Great. We'll keep that in mind.
All right, without further questions, I'm sure we're going to look forward to hearing about some in-person events. Maybe you could check in with us about the dates before. Yeah. We've got
Definitely
a lot going on in this neighborhood, man. We've got a lot of
Yep.
planning meetings to coordinate.
We
have
do.
street festivals to attend. We've got city council. It's a big deal.
Yep. So we'll coordinate with you. We'll give you a heads up and check on that. We don't want to conflict with your meeting either. So
That's thoughtful of you. Thank you so much.
of course. Well, thank you for having me.
One more thing, Jim reminds me. Are you going to do specific research, outreach to the Homeless Resource Center, which is included in this station area?
Yep, that is part of the plan. And I think our sub-consultant might have already had some discussions with them as well.
Okay, great. I think they have, pretty specific needs as well that are worth taking into consideration. All righty.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Daniel, would you be so kind as to stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
All right. Now we can look at everybody's black boxes and little tiny faces, and that's just so exciting. Detective Fallows.
How is everybody doing?
So good now that you're here.
Yes, I am here. Righty.
Thanks for picking up trash with us.
Yeah, that was a good experience. Actually on that, just to follow up real quick, I did get the cleanup, the advantage services to get that scheduled for the cleanup. And I'm trying to make it a permanent regular thing, but it is scheduled for cleanup at a minimum. And then I'm going to work on getting it to be a regular, hopefully weekly occurrence. So
Let's say what you're pushing. Detective Sam Fallows did some trash pickup with us a couple weeks ago, and he accompanied through one of our less savory public alleyways and noticed with us that there's kind of a lot of bio waste going on. And we talked about how it would be a good idea to be proactive in cleaning up that space as opposed to us having to go into the alley and document it and put it into the app on a weekly basis. So
definitely.
Thanks for being in the poop with us, Detective Fallows.
Absolutely. I'm trying to make my. All righty. Yes, absolutely. So tonight I'm just gonna kind of keep it simple. I know there's some for public safety issues in the neighborhood. There's obviously an update to talk about. And if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, just go ahead and throw it in the chat, and I'll kind of get to those at the end. So I'm Detective Sam Fallows. I am the community liaison for District 5. I'm going to throw some my contact info and some helpful links up in the chat for anybody who either needs to get a hold of me or has, is interested in like crime statistics, things like that. So Amy gets, I think it's all of her crime stats from our website. I'm pretty positive. So
Heck yeah, I do.
yeah, so she's really good at that. So if you have any questions on how to navigate it, she's awesome to help you through that. She's probably better even than I am at that. But the website has all our crime stats on there, including like the comp stat reports and things like that. So you can see all that information. The comp stats just broken down into District 5, so not Ballpark specific, but it'll still kind of give you a snapshot of what it looks like. To recap, just the main incident that occurred over the weekend, 1485 South Major Street. There was a shooting where an individual was shot. There's a press release on this. We can, so it's still a current active investigation. So there's not a ton of new information I can give that's outside of the press release, but it's actively being investigated. On my end, as your community liaison, what I can tell you is that I am in contact with the building owner, not the property owner, but not the business owner, but the building owner. And I'm working with him, as I did last year, to kind of help mitigate these problems that we keep having at this location. Albeit that they be a year apart, this is the second shooting we've had at this location in about a year and a half-ish, year and change. So I'm working with him, and they're very cooperative and want to help, to kind of mitigate these issues for Ballpark. So they are definitely vested in the Ballpark neighborhood, and they're super cooperative to try and make that happen. So I'm working with him on ideas, with the current renter, and then also with future renters and future people on how to kind of help not let this happen again at this location. So that's what I'm working on. Of course, our detectives on the other side are working the criminal side of it with the aggravated assault, things like that happened with the shooting there. So Does anybody have any questions on that specifically, maybe that I can answer? Or I'll try if I can.
What's the name of the business that's there now? It's not obvious. Before it was called the Loading Dock, and then they closed down after last July's shooting, or at least I was under the impression they did.
So my understanding is there is no current business license on file, so there is no business name that I'm aware of.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know the business name. If there even is, if there is one, I don't know. But
I was going to ask if you were going to work with business licensing, but if there is no business license, I don't know how to even ask that question.
yeah, and I do actually work with them. So as your community detective, when these kinds of things happen, the first thing I pretty much do is reach out to them. That's kind of where we start, is like, do they have an active business license? That allows us to take other actions on the city side of things when these kinds of things are allowed to happen in the neighborhoods and in the businesses, and we can kind of work with business licensing. So that is definitely the first step I take generally when on my side, when I'm investigating these kinds of things as the liaison detective. But yes, so that was what we found when we did that. I think you know, the tone overall in Ballpark, I think, is like things like this put a damper on all the hard work and all the good things that are going on, I think, you know. But I do want to highlight that too, because I think like our officers have worked really hard to saturate that specific area. And in fact, the night of the shooting, and I appreciate all the alert residents that called that in right away. But the night of the shooting, our officer was actually in the area on a kind of like an extra patrol type thing on Major Street, and heard the shots and responded immediately. So, you know, kudos to our officers for being out there in that area. They've saturated it quite a bit. You know, I think there's a big difference between last year to this year, and I hope that we can fill that somewhat with like the Major Street homes that are no longer there and things like that. So there's definitely some positives. So I don't want this to put a huge damper on everything, but I appreciate the alert citizens that called in when they heard the shots. That's exactly what we need from you all. When you're hearing, you know, or seeing things that are, you know, that's obviously beyond suspicious, but when there's like anything suspicious going on, to give us a call. A lot of times our officers are already in that area, kind of saturating the area, but they may not see what you're seeing. So, but yeah, kudos to our officers for being out there already and responding within seconds of that happening. So if there's no questions on that, I see that Julia, hi Julia, she put in about the Main Street Motel. What's the plan to avoid mayhem with it being empty? And are we worried it's already a nightmare to own businesses across the street? So I definitely am working with Amy already on that. And we're kind of working with the city already to kind of get a plan in place for, you know, when that happens. So what will happen is we'll get civil enforcement involved. We'll get law enforcement involved. On my end, I'll make sure that the building is secured, that the trespass signs are up and visible, and the affidavits on file. We'll make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so that, you know, when that happens, we can stay ahead of any issues that will most likely arise out of, you know, hopefully the building doesn't sit there empty, but if it does, then, you know, we'll be able to deal with those issues as they arise. So there definitely are talks in place already to start getting the plans in place to deal with that. So, and go ahead, Amy. Yeah.
I know, you know, there have been some folks in the neighborhood who've asked, is there any way that, you know, while it's on its way to becoming something else, is there any way that it could be temporarily repurposed? But that question makes me think like, oh, wouldn't we want the health department to check out the individual rooms before we did that? Because so are there any, have there been any discussions about that, about getting the health department involved from, you know, going forward to be proactive in that way?
I'm not aware of any like specific discussions about like repurposing, but that's a great idea, and I'll bring that up for sure. I haven't heard of any discussions about that specifically, but that's not a bad idea at all.
I have to admit, I don't know if it is in a state where that would be even an appropriate conversation. but
Right. I mean, we could
just-
definitely, yes, absolutely, for sure. Let's see. Could it be torn down like the houses on Major Street? That's a good question too. I'm not sure, just because it's a bit of a different situation, but my goal is to not let it turn into something that gets that bad where we have to take that kind of action. So, but I mean, there's everything's on the table, right? And there's always options, but we don't want it to get bad enough that the city has to put an emergency order to demolish it, basically. So we don't want it to get that bad, but you know, it's certainly something we could look at for sure if it came to that. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully, you know, whoever develops it can just tear it down already. Let's see. Oh, something else I want to highlight too, especially for this area that we're talking about. We've had quite a bit of success, Julie included, and several other businesses in the area that have been getting trespass signs and affidavits filled out and trespass signs up. And our bike unit, Sergeant Christensen and his unit, have just been awesome and been super proactive in that area. So I just want to highlight that a little bit. For any business that doesn't have an affidavit or a trespass sign up yet, please contact me, and I will be happy to walk you through that process. It is a phenomenal tool for our bike unit. I know they have made several big arrests, closed some cases like robbery cases in the city, stolen vehicle cases, things like that, all because of the trespass signs. And essentially what those do is they allow the police department, they give us a legal reason as a police officer to stop someone and basically make them identify themselves because they are breaking the law, and they are trespassing. And the trespass sign gives us the authority from you, the business owner, to go remove people from your property. And so when that sign is up and the affidavit is on file, that just gives us a lot of teeth to be able to do proactive work. And especially like our bike unit, they utilize that a lot, especially in that area, which is like our focus area, right? Like Main Street, State Street, Major Street, you know, between 13th and 17th South. That's all our major focus areas. So definitely something that is going to be super helpful for that. So if you have any questions, my email and contact info is at the top of the stuff that I put in there, and please contact me so I can help you get those and square those away.
I believe
Still-
Fraser Nilsson has a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Detective. Thank you. Two quick questions. One is we really appreciate the cameras that are now at Jefferson Park in front of the little structure there. It seems to have cut down on the open drug use and drug dealing that was going on there. I wonder if you can explain how community members, how the decision is made to put one there and if it's possible to get one in other places. And then secondly, I'm wondering if you have any updates on the arson and broken windows and vandalism that occurred at the row house condos that were seem to be gang related. If you have any update on the arson there. Thanks.
Did you say the Roadhouse condos?
The row house on West Temple and Fremont, there was an arson attempt and several broken windows. And there was gang tagging, and the thought was it was, you know, there was like the person was arrested after the second arson attempt. Maybe you're not familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular case, and I apologize. If you email me, I know you got my email, I think. I can definitely look into it for you.
Great.
So yeah, I unfortunately don't have an update on that one right now. The cameras, so I help coordinate putting up cameras, and they go up for a number of different reasons. It's not always necessarily through me. There's lots of different reasons they go up. It can be anything from, like, if we had a major incident recently, they'll generally put a camera up in that area. I wish we had quadruple the cameras we do have, because all of them are always utilized all the time. So, but it doesn't, but basically the way it works is if you'd like a camera up in your neighborhood, number one, I've got to have some data to back it up. So this is why I always say it's very important to call in on the issues in the neighborhood. So, for instance, Jefferson Park, you know, is a hotbed issue. So I'm sure that's why a camera went up there. So things, but if I have data to back it up, it's really easy for me to put in a camera request and say, hey, we've had like 15 vandalisms over the last month here. We need a camera at this location, and they'll gladly put one up. So, but because we have a finite amount of cameras in the city, we have to kind of go off the data that we receive. So reach out to me first and just, you know, put in a request for a camera and say, hey, we'd like to have a camera up here. You know, again, depending on like if it's a hotbed area where I know we are having a lot of issues, it's not a big deal to put a camera up. Depending on how long they stay and all those things is all dependent on the needs throughout the whole city for cameras. And so they kind of move them around the city, you know, at different times. They try to keep cameras in an area at least for a week or a few weeks. But sometimes they have to move them for, you know, just whatever reasons that might be a little more pressing. So great question on that. Yeah, reach out to me. I can help facilitate that. I think I've never been turned down. So when I ask for a camera in an area, so sometimes it takes a little while based on need, but they'll always put one up eventually. So great question. So Stacy, to kind of answer your question about like what can the community do to help keep things safe, like the best thing that I've preached and is just to call in when there's an issue. Sometimes we're super busy and we can't get to calls right away, and I understand that can be frustrating. But the way I see it is that we will respond on calls eventually. And so if we can't get to it right away, we're going to come through the neighborhood. It'll act like an extra patrol through your neighborhood. So even if it's like, hey, I see some individuals doing drugs in the alleyway or something like that, if we can't get there right away, that's frustrating, and I completely understand that. But we will get to it eventually, and you know, we'll drive down the alleyway, we'll check the area, we'll have a police car in your neighborhood. So to me, that's a win-win either way. But yeah, really the best thing is to just call and let us know when there's an issue. And then also I'd add to that also just like in your own homes and things like that, like keep your lights on at night, do everything you can to make your property undesirable to someone who's looking for an opportunity. That's what most crimes are, is crimes of opportunity, right? Especially the property crimes and things like that. So good question. Amy, did you have something else you wanted to?
Yep. 2 points. One, speaking about how wonderful those no trespassing signs are, we're gonna work proactively with whomever the property owner is at the time to get those for the Main Street Motel.
Was that a question?
I think so. I don't. Yeah. Was it a question?
I couldn't tell from the tone.
We're gonna do it, right? Question mark.
We are doing it. Yes. Correct. Yep. Whoever. So if it gets sold, then I'll just immediately reach out to whoever that is, and we'll just get like an affidavit on file and get it going. If it doesn't, then you know, I'll just work with the current owner. And it sounds like they already have the signs up there actually, and they're already have an affidavit on file. But we'll just reiterate, make sure that, you know, again, I'll make sure on my end to make sure that like there's plenty of signs, that they're all visible, that they're up, the building's secured, that kind of stuff. And I'll probably work with like civil enforcement on that kind of thing, with the security of the building, things like that, to make sure that it's all squared away. But yeah, absolutely. They already have the affidavit on file, so that's easy. If it's a new owner, then all I have to do is go have them fill out a new affidavit, and that's me just emailing a document and then sending it back. It's super easy. So we will make sure it gets taken care of for sure.
We are very supportive of this. My second thing was not a question, it was a statement. And I know lots of folks on this call, you know, they deal with issues at Jefferson Park that are frustrating. So I wanted to give a shout out to, we got some money. It's a real deal. We've got some capital improvement funding for Jefferson Park because of the efforts of Marcus Wright, but also frankly, a whole bunch of people in the community who've been engaging with the city since we were first holding meetings with public lands in the you know, when everybody was socially distancing. We were having Zoom meetings in July 2020 talking about like, what can we do to get funding for this park so we can get some improvements? It is our green space. We don't have much of it. Let's make this awesome. And so I'm really grateful that that funding is going to come along, and I think we're going to get some lighting. a trail around the park. There's a lot of conversation, maybe new playground equipment. I think that's going to serve all of us to help activate the space. I think that's a great thing. And so to everybody who went to meetings, who submitted comment at those meetings, who then resubmitting the application after it didn't get through the first time, showing up to city council. I mean, thank you City Weekly for publishing our city council comments. Is everything. There are a lot of folks on this, not on this call, who gave a big lift, and I hope that we'll be able to enjoy those changes from years to come. And I hope it'll make your job easier, Detective Fallows.
Well, for sure it will. And I appreciate that. That means a lot. That's awesome. Any other questions or anything like that I can try and answer, or that I could certainly follow up on and get back to you?
We appreciate you.
All righty.
Thanks
Thank you
for
all.
joining us for the Night Out Against Crime. That was rad.
It was awesome. We'll do it next year.
It's a date. Last but not least, Sergeant Neinzer.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Perfect. So I'm Sergeant Meinzer. I am over our Homeless Resource Center squad that's assigned to the Gail Miller Resource Center. I wanted to kind of come out and explain what we've been working on and kind of the results that we've seen and kind of where we're going from here. So I can kind of give you an update of what's all going on down there. So I know we're kind of crunched on time, so I'll try and be fairly brief if I can, but I'm kind of long-winded. Okay, so first and foremost, we've now been here about 5.5 weeks. So our first week that we were here, we ended up doing a block party, and we invited residents, local businesses, as well as people that are temporarily using the resource center. And we ended up having 380 hot dogs and hamburgers that all got eaten. We did raffles, a whole lot of fun. It was really great. Thank you for everyone that did come out. While we were there doing that, I also had a survey that I had, and I wanted to kind of get feedback from the people that are staying in the resource center to kind of help me analyze what can I do differently with my team to support everybody, because I've gotten lots and lots of feedback from the community, but I don't want to exclude people that are vulnerable that are staying here. So the results of those were really, really awesome. It gave us a lot of good ideas. It helped us kind of understand their perception on what's going on down here. And I even asked for feedback on what can we do to support your goals. And surprising to see, there's a lot of support. And a lot of people have very similar goals to the same as me, same as you, same as everyone out here, which is really, really awesome to see. I'm going to kind of go over just a couple of those results because it kind of shaped the direction that I took my squad. And so I want to make sure that I kind of briefly talk about that so that you can kind of understand it. But the end of my survey, halfway through the end, it kind of talked about services and trying to help connect them to more resources. So one of the things that was identified as wanting to have extra like arts and crafts, mental health programs, like job trainings, things like that. So I looked externally and thought, what can we do to find outside community help so that when people get back on their feet and they're housed, that they don't feel the need to, I have to go back because I miss people. I don't have a community. So I'm trying to help them connect outside to kind of establish their feet when they're out and on the ground. So part of that was I identified that Fit to Recover, they're actually in Ballpark. They do about 200 courses a week, and they essentially do a lot of the things that we're being asked to include, like they have a music center for recording. They have a music booth, and these are some of the things that we're asked for. So I kind of wrote up an initiative called Salt Lake City Police Department's New Hope Initiative to kind of go forward in a direction and have a plan with what we're going to do. So there's 3 parts to my plan for trying to change the community and the expectations of being down here. And the first part of it is to try and get more involvement from the community. And part of that is I'm bringing in, we're going to start doing 2 classes a week, and we want to start rotating it to where we get people that are involved to come to their facility here in Ballpark, so we kind of show that there's that community, like I said. We also try and work with groups to do motivational speaking to kind of show that while I don't understand what it's like to be homeless, some of you may or may not, but there are people that have been homeless before that have been able to get off and out and are, successful members of the community. And I'm trying to help connect people to see that, there is life out there, and I'm trying to help them connect. And the last part is right now I'm working on a coin program where I'm having coins made where I give them to businesses, and the businesses are to look for positives. So I want them to see if someone picks up trash, if someone is polite or kind, go out and thank them, talk to them, give them that feedback, look for the positive. Then that coin, that person can come and meet with me and I'll give them a $5 gift card. And at the same time, I talk to them like, hey, what'd you do? Like, I'm congratulating them on a successful encounter with people. The whole point is trying to create a feeling of safety and security to where a business owner or even a citizen feels safe enough to say like, hey, can you please not like throw garbage here? And whoever it is can say like, oh yeah, like, sorry about that, pick it up, and have a positive interaction. Then from there, I then take that back and I go to the business and I talk to them about that interaction, about what change they created by doing that. So the whole point is you try and create those 4 positive interactions for the cost of $5 for a $5 gift card. So when they bring that coin to me, that's the reward for doing the good deed. Not only did you get reward from, being talked to and being treated like a human being, but you also, you can go buy a hamburger if you want. It's something that's an opportunity. So that's kind of the direction that I'm going that's outside of law enforcement, to try and create more community involvement, and really try and bring everyone together and have an idea of we're all human, if that makes sense. So, and lastly, I kind of wanted to talk, I was analyzing data to see, has any of this been working? Our hard work, has it been effective or not? And so I ended up comparing, so 23 days into it, after we started full time, I had our CompStat pull some data for us. And I wanted to kind of understand what would I be expecting to see in the data compared to last year versus the 23 days prior to us starting. So I pulled data through CompStat where they pulled 23 days before we started. And this is within 500 feet of the resource center. And they pulled last year's numbers from the date we started, 23 days later. And then we pulled the data from when we were full-time this year, from when we started to 23 days later. So I'm going to kind of talk about those numbers to kind of point out some of the work we've done. So calls for service in that 500-foot bubble, we were expecting to see a 12% increase, because usually during the summertime calls go up. A lot of people are out and about, you have more congregation of people loitering, things like that. We actually ended up seeing from that projected number, we saw a 28.5% decrease. So a very big decrease. Our index crimes. So index crimes are homicide, robbery, rape, ag assault, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft. We were expecting to see a 16.5% increase, and we ended up seeing a 91.66% decrease. Our violent crime was 100% decrease. Our property crime, this was a big one. We were expecting to see an 18% increase, and we saw a 90.90% decrease. Huge difference. So like the local businesses that are having, theft, things like that, it's going down that much. That's a very big deal. Even people that are, staying here, for instance, if they have something stolen, or they misplace something and it gets taken as they were in the bathroom or something like that. It's huge. Property crime is very, very big to people because it's, it's your livelihood. It's things that you take with you every day that are important. So the next 3 stats I want to talk about are the other crimes. Now, this is proactive stuff. So this is like when we're out looking for drugs, drug dealers, fraud, vandalism, disorderly conduct, trespass is a big one. So this is proactive work, and we've been doing a ton of work for trespass cases. We expected to see a 55.5% increase, and we actually did indeed match that number. We've been very, very proactive, and I'll talk about all of our stats after to say how many interactions we've had. And our other reports, so for instance, where we have like a missing person, a mental health call, traffic accident, ambulance calls, we expected to see a 63% increase, and we ended up only seeing a 27% increase. So we decreased that increase by 36%. And then lastly, I worked with the fire department to see like, hey, how much are you guys having to go to the resource center in terms of comparing? I want to see, did we help at all? Are we helping anybody not need medical by being in the area, maybe deterring crime from occurring? They saw a 77% decrease in calls to service during that time period. So, and when I talked to them kind of about numbers to kind of understand their response fees, it sounds like that 23 days saved about $25,000. So it's a pretty big number on their part. And now I want to talk about the 5 weeks. For the last 5 weeks, I've been tracking our data and what we've been doing. And I kind of want to shout out to my team because they have been kicking butt. So we did 228 calls to service. We did a total of 522 business contacts. We did a total of 632 contacts with the resource center staff or security. A lot of times it's just checking in, just seeing how they're doing, if there's anything we can assist with, just trying to have a positive interaction and kind of develop some rapport. We've conducted 11 operations, and big number is we refer to resources as often as we can, because we're trying to make sure that everyone has connections. So when we're dealing with people, we want to ensure that they know what's available out there. We've done a total of 1,226 references to resources. So very, very big number. And all of that work and working with the community, those reductions in crime, it's very, very big. So our area that we cover is from 13th South to 17th South, from the freeway to the tracks, just to the east of the resource center. So that's kind of our main large focus area that we're working on. And the big thing is, if you're in this area, if you see something, give us a call. We want to be able to help support you. And sometimes it's little things like, for instance, the trespass. Even just yesterday, there was an individual that was here trespassing on one of the private property businesses in the area. And, you know, I go up and I talk to this individual, and he's not here receiving resources. He's not here patronizing any businesses. And so I'm kind of like, well, what are you here for? He ended up having some warrants for his arrest, but he had a large amount of meth and fentanyl on him. So he was here taking advantage of the people that are vulnerable. This is the type of stuff that I want to stop. So it's something like small, like trespassing, that led to something very big that was very beneficial for the community. That's a huge win. But the important part is we're working with the businesses, and getting those trespass affidavit signs are very good for us. And two, call us. It's very important that you work here. You know, sometimes your day, you see way more than we might, and we're in a large area. Call us if you see us, because I need your eyes. I need your help being able to see everything. And if we're really going to come together as a community, that's when we can see progress forward. Any questions on all that? Let me look in the chat and see if anyone, no. Oh, wait, hold on. So the coin program, Stacy, it will probably be just within our area. So if you have a business in that area, we can do it, because it's kind of a pilot program. And I'm trying to kind of work on the logistics of that. But if it works and it's something that the department can adopt larger, I'd be more than happy to. It's something that I'm trying to help secure and have it set up so it's long-term. So for instance, it's kind of driven by the community. Let's see. I don't see any other questions yet. Yeah, the smoke shop. All right, any other questions for me? Any thoughts, feelings, concerns?
Detective Meinzer, do you have a sense of, I mean, the reductions that you mentioned sound amazing, and I have heard lots of anecdotes from folks who own businesses on 300 West or Paramount that, like, the difference is palpable, and that's really exciting. But do you have a sense of, are you just like pushing bad actors into other places? Are you pushing crime away, or are you preventing crime?
So
Which
it's
is,
a very
I think,
good question.
I think that's like kind of the big question in policing in general, isn't it?
Oh, totally. So right now, our department, we work off stratified policing. So essentially, when you're dealing with crime, the way to reduce it and stop it from occurring is you have to target it in a different way than normal. So simply just trying to deter and just trying, increased presence blindly doesn't quite really deter it from occurring, and that can cause it to spread. So there's essentially a triangle with a victim in the middle when you talk about crime and stopping it. So one side is you're talking about time of day or day of the week. The other side is going to be the location. And then the third side is going to be the criminal themselves. So we're trying to really assess, and we adjust our hours to try to counter those times. So we've noticed that some of the criminal element has identified when we stop working. So we've been adjusting our hours to try and throw them off. So when we're identifying, okay, these are the times when we can catch these people, then that's the next part. So for instance, that guy I mentioned that was dealing, so we worked with the jail. The judge actually is not going to release him from the jail. So it's not going to be something that he comes back out here and deals on. It's a no bail release because they were willing to work on it with us. So we're really trying to identify, if we know who the criminal is, we can affect that. If we don't, we want to try and work on the day and the location. So that's a big part of, if you notice something or you say, you know what, it might be a good idea for you guys to come over in this area over here within that large area. We've been experiencing XYZ. Tell us. We need that feedback because, you know, there's 6 of us total. We don't see everything. And if you don't report it or let us know, it may go by unnoticed. An example today. So one of the truck companies over here, they do welding and repair on trailers. And in the last month, they've had about $17,000 of damage to vehicles getting stripped and stuff. So they talked to us about having issues with a camp that would come and get set up throughout the night. And we worked with them this morning. We ended up going out there, getting it all cleared out. We had Advantage Services come and clear the camp. We're working with them on getting the affidavit signed so that we can do enforcement there. But the big part is they reached out to us and they gave us information we didn't have. They had already identified, hey, here's when it's happening. This is exactly what's going on. And that's helpful for us because it's, you know, one of the prongs of the triangle for us has already been solved, and it gives us direction. So good question, Kelly. So if you want to be able to support the coin program, I'm trying to work on funding. So if you're interested in trying to be part of that, I'm trying to get a hold of, essentially, community is welcome to donate to it. I can't accept your donation, but I have a nonprofit who's helping facilitate. If you want to email me, I can just connect you with them if you're interested. But the big part is look for positives. Even if you don't have coins, try it and try and give that positive feedback and see if maybe there's a change in your neighborhood. Maybe. Thank you for adding my email. You beat me to it. So, and lastly, this program is kind of new. Trying to see, is this something that, like a pilot program, is this something that we can replicate elsewhere and have success? Is it this program is going to be what's helping reduce crime, or is it maybe the way we're addressing crime, or we're trying to analyze and see what's most effective and find the best practice? And my big thing is, if we're not seeing success, we need to assess and say, all right, what's working, what's not, and go from there. Because at this point, we can't afford to fail. So if we're failing, let's readjust. And the community, you're a big part of the solution. So.
Are you making your job sound cool enough to Detective Fallows so that when you get promoted, he can take your job? We all know you're going to get promoted again.
One day.
Hi, Detective Fallows. We want to keep good people in the neighborhood. Don't blame us.
You got him muted. You got to unmute him.
No, happy to.
I was just going to say, I followed him this far. I might as well just keep going.
All right. That feels good. Sounds like you're doing amazing things, Sergeant Meinzer.
We're trying.
Do you have any, do you know yet, are you going to get additional resources if the city and state go ahead with their plans to flex the Gail Miller Homeless Resource Center? I have no idea. I think we're grant funded. And so it's that year you get the grant funding, and it is the amount that we have. I don't think that they would change that based on overflow occurring, but I could be wrong because I don't know all the nitty gritty details of overflow and how that would change or not. All right. Just thought I'd ask if anybody had communicated to you about that, since it sounds like you're making quite a difference, but I hope they loop you in soon.
Crossing my fingers.
All right. Josh Blankenship, I didn't even text you beforehand. So rude to just call on you. Who knows what you're doing? You could be making dinner, you could be walking your dog. If you're around, I'd love to hear you talk about Team Trash. But no pressure.
No, I don't mind at all.
Hot diggity.
First, I want to talk about the Costco that we have in the neighborhood.
Yes.
No, real quick. My name is Josh. This is my partner, Roshni. We run a trash cleanup group on Monday nights at 7:30. We're usually out for an hour. And I'll just briefly talk about what we hope to do with that and continue doing with that, and then what our limitations are. So we're on foot. We just cover a few blocks. We're only going out for an hour. We have trash grabbers. We have a sharps container. And so we're limited a little bit just because we're on foot. My hope with this is to expand this out into other parts of the community. So I encourage anyone that's interested to come join us on a Monday night. We'll talk about how to get dumpsters available. I've talked to businesses around here to line up a few dumpsters that we can use. We'll talk about how to safely pick up sharps. We can talk about how to get resources. But what I would hope to see is that maybe 4 square blocks of the community kind of take it upon themselves to clean up their little area. And if we can spread that out among the community, I think we could see a major difference in just the cleanliness. And then the other thing that it does is it just brings people together. We meet at Roha because it's really close to where we live. So that's really the only reason, but they have been so helpful in providing grain bags that we sort of upcycle then to use for our trash bags. And so I feel like it's turned into this very productive hour out of the week community building event. And it gets us out in the community to meet people that are in the neighborhoods that maybe we wouldn't meet. It has a lot of benefits, and it's a really low barrier to running. So if anyone's interested in being a part of that, and then maybe taking that to your part of the neighborhood, join us on a Monday night, and we can talk about how to do this safely and how you could spread it to your little part of the neighborhood.
Can I add one thing? I do like the fact that it gives us the opportunity to talk to the unhoused and kind of get an idea of what's going on. We have had a couple of people come help us clean as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's really nice.
Josh, you haven't been doing this for like 2 weeks. You've been doing it for a little while now.
For a minute, yeah. We finally set in on a pretty set schedule, I think, on Mondays. The winter. Yeah, just because of the snow and it gets dark so early, that was difficult. But if the weather's nice, so spring, summer, fall, we've been trying to do it now for probably a year.
That was going to be my point. You guys have kept it up a whole year, which is pretty rad. I know, winter with snow, whatever weather, and the dark mostly, because you don't really want to be picking up, especially if there's sharps in the dark. It's not great. But it's pretty cool. You guys have been at it a year. Somebody should give you like an award or something.
I don't think so. Clean sidewalks, that's the reward.
Well, thank you, Josh and Roche.
Yep. So come out and join us.
All right. Got anybody else on here who I ought to let speak on something or other? I'm looking around, checking out names. Kensington Street Fest. I'm just going to keep saying that. I'm very excited about it. Speaking of something that's gone on a year, round 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm excited. 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. All ages, free admission, bands, food trucks. It'll be exciting. All right, without any other speakers who want to drop anything, anybody just want to leave that opportunity open, feel free to raise your paw. Thank you all for spending your time with us on this unusual night of the week on Wednesday. I appreciate you changing your schedules to sign on for us. Thank you, everybody.